Hello there, Seraphim17 once again. This is my Gears of War 5, Gears 5 Insane Difficulty video walkthrough. This is Act 1, and we're beginning here with Shot in the Dark. So, this guide has been made using the PC version of the game, and the developers were kind enough to hook me up with a key. So, massive shout out to them, thank you so much for sharing your baby with me. And that enables me to share my baby with you guys. This walkthrough is going to be no nonsense. There's not going to be any cutscenes, there's not going to be any downtime, there's going to be a lot of editing to make sure that I can get rid of many moments where there is no need for me to be giving you any kind of advice or any kind of input with the game. This is going to be all the moments where essentially you as a player can die, and a couple of the moments woven together to make it make sense. A couple of things I'd like to preface at the beginning of this video series. The first is that if you don't like commentary, guys, and I know some people don't, if you're stumbling on this channel and wondering why there's an Englishman shouting at you, you do not have to watch this version of my guide. I will be putting up a single video which will be the full walkthrough of the same footage, but with no commentary on it, so you can get your strategies in a more visual format, and you don't need to listen to me tell you what I think about the game and random bollocks that I talk throughout these videos. So, good to know. And then the second thing, which is not as good to know, is that the game in its current state is in a bit of a problem. So, you can get this game in a pre-release format by subscribing to Microsoft's Game Pass, which apparently if you live in Korea you can pay for, but you can't actually get access to. So be very careful if you're from that country. But Game Pass is something you purchase where you get access to a vast library of games to download and play, and you can pay for it monthly, like any other subscription like Netflix. And Gears 5 has launched on that, and not only has it launched, but it's launched early. So Gears comes out on the 10th of September. You could play it from the 6th, which is, there's a 4-day difference there, which is awesome for people that are really excited about the story and getting in on the game. But it seems like the game has had a whole host of server problems and a whole host of problems in general. I will say this at the beginning to make sure that my tune doesn't really change, because my opinion will be the same when we get to the end of the game. This is the buggiest Gears of War I've ever played. And I played Gears of War 1 multiplayer against enemy teams crab walking, backflipping through the map, and hiding out of bounds. And I say that from a perspective of, I have never had the same amount of problems that I've had in this game in any other Gears. I have had moments where my AI do not follow me, and I need them to trigger the next sequence in a game, so the pathing breaks and I have to restart the checkpoint. I've had moments where enemies are literally fused with the scenery and did not spawn correctly, and I cannot end a fight because I cannot hurt the enemy. I've had times where enemies' AI literally doesn't turn on. I've had times where spawns literally didn't trigger. I have had so many problems. Times when Jack does not follow you and you need him to open a door and it soft-locks the game. Times when you do a very difficult firefight and then afterwards a door's meant to open and the tome's meant to play, but it never happens. It's crazy. I fell through the graphics. I've had a lot of things happen, guys, and I take no pleasure in saying this. I'm a very, very big Gears fan. I started at the beginning, and I've loved this series for a long time. I want Gears 5 to be a massive flagship for Microsoft, to show that, Gears is still a thing. You should be excited, it's going to bring it back. And the current state of this game is giving people a lot of problems. It's deleting people's game saves. It's lowering your difficulty without telling you. It's doing a lot of things that I find very difficult to defend. So just then, did you see how I paused it, guys? I recommend you do the same. Every so often when you're playing, if you press pause and you look at the top of the menu, it'll tell you what difficulty you're on. I played the first 4 chapters of this game, and the 4th chapter was on intermediate. I did not change difficulty, I did not want it to be on intermediate, I started on insane, and the game just changed it, forcing me to replay a whole chapter. Fortunately for me, the chapter that it made me replay was one of the shorter ones, but there are chapters in this game that are incredibly long because the pacing is not equal at all. So this is something that you need to be aware of, guys. However, I'm hoping that when the game does launch, there's going to be a really, really nice patch that's going to alleviate all of these problems. Because the game as itself has got a lot of quality and a lot of things for people to like. It's just unfortunate there are so many things pushing people away. And one of the things you'll notice in my video, which is something you might come across on PC, is the game suffers from stuttering every so often. And it's one of those things where it doesn't really matter what hardware you're using, and it doesn't really correlate to what's happening on the screen. In intensive moments, you'll get a full frame rate. In moments where nothing's happening, you'll get those weird stutters. And I've seen people on the forums who have i9 processors with RTX 2080 Ti's, which is one of the most powerful graphics cards on the planet, and they're still getting the same thing. So it seems like it's something that hopefully the Coalition can address and hopefully make better. But that's the end of my beginner spiel, guys. That's everything that I pretty much needed to say. And we can move into what you're witnessing right now, which is me taking on the swarm, taking out a few people, and then sealing the emergence of that nest, and then proceeding onwards. A couple of new features in Gears 5, the first of which is you will now have a companion with you who's from the old games, called Jack. In the prologue here, you're with Dave, he's a different robot, and what it enables you to do is Dave can pick up weapons at a distance for you, Dave can shock enemies defensively and stun them for you, Dave can use a radar sweep amongst other abilities, and he's kind of your heads-up display for a lot of features that are going to help you play the game. And I really like him. I think that he is a great addition to the game as a utility for the player to do well. I think you're going to have a lot of fun with him, and you might even, grow a bond with him and get a nice connection with him, because the game does lean on that. But the reason I like him is because he enables me to do things that I've not really been able to do in any other Gears. When used correctly, Dave can stun enemies, and the stun is pretty long, which is kind of awesome. Dave can enable you to hijack enemies, which is a power that is so powerful I'm going to avoid using it, but I'm going to tell you guys to use it because it's really strong. He has the ability to put up a barricade that can reflect damage. He has a whole host of really, really awesome abilities. But the issue here is, he's kind of a character that is reserved for New Game Plus. Because when you play 3-player co-op in Gears 5, one of the people playing will have to play as Dave or Jack, and they can't do anything. They can literally pick guns up, electrocute people at point-blank range, and that's it. He is questionable at best when it comes to being a human component in the game, and I have no idea why they've advertised him that way. But his tools, once you do level him up, make him incredibly fun. And I'm hoping that in Horde mode, he's wonderful, because principally, he has some really, really good features that make him really good. The two features I'm going to be leaning on the most are his flash ability and his stim. The stim in Gears of War 5 is my favourite ability by far. It enables you to do things you cannot do anywhere else in this series, and it is really, really fun. It enables you to get very creative. But I have to mention a problem here, guys, as we take on these Juvies. There are moments when Jack does not listen, and I don't know why. I've only beat this game twice at this point, and I've played a little bit of co-op. I've kind of got as deep into the mechanics as you were expected to get, and I still haven't figured out how this works. So right now you'll notice that Dave is flying around to my right, he's not in stealth mode, and on the top left you'll notice that my cooldown is ready for the radar ping, and it says on the screen every so often that I can press my mouse scroll wheel to make him do the button to do the ping. And I'm not using it because I know what the enemies are that are coming and I don't need to. But what happens is when you tell Jack to do something, there are moves that you have to aim at the locust. So if you aim above them, you'll see an icon that tells you that you're targeting them, and when you do it, there's a travel time of Jack flying towards them and doing the move. This I understand. This is the balance of some of these abilities. However, there are times when you try to press it, and it does not make a noise like telling you that you can't do it, and Jack does not respond. 90% of the time, depending on how you use this ability, you won't have a problem with this because you're probably just using him to send him out there to get him to do something to make sure that you're always using your moves. But if you use certain tools like I do, in a reactionary sense, it can lead to failing and you're not sure why. So here's a good example of what you can do. If an enemy's firing a hit towards you that is going to kill you, if you have nearly full Omen and the next shot's going to kill you and you know when they're going to shoot, like a Boltok, even though the Boltok in this game is a one-shot kill, if you press Stim, it will give you armor that will tank any of the damage. If you go to a Snatcher, on Insane, a Snatcher when he slams is a one-hit kill. If you activate Stim as that move's happening, you'll survive. Stim is amazing. It can do so many things. if you get hit by a torque bow, I haven't tested this, but I bet it works. You get hit by a torque bow, if you activate Stim, you'll probably survive. It enables you to walk through grenades, it enables you to walk through all kinds of crazy stuff, and I love it. But the problem is, sometimes it doesn't work. And when I say that, I don't mean that Stim doesn't work. Stim works beautiful. Jack does not work. So there's times when I've gone into a situation and my Omen's gone really quickly to almost max Omen, 1 hit away from death, and I've pressed Stim when I have it, and he won't do it. And I don't know what governs this. I don't know if it's a difficulty cooldown thing that they don't explain. I don't know if it's a bug. It could be, because the game is very buggy at the moment. But what I do know is there are going to be moments when you tell Jack to do something and he doesn't. You need to get used to this, because until the Coalition addresses it and tells us what's happening, or until you figure out the mechanic, it's just going to be the way it is. But this right here is the first of the demanding firefights in the game. This is a large sequence with quite a long checkpoint and quite a few enemies to take on. And at this moment, you're going to be assailed by the standard Imagos, who are the weakest of the swarm. They are the juveniles, but you will also notice that they have some grenadiers, the elite grenadiers. These guys are a little different than they used to be. If you remember in the old Gears of War, the elite grenadier was usually the guy who was shirtless, who would run up to you with the shotgun, and that's all he would do. He'd run up to you with a shotgun, and he could throw grenades, but oftentimes he didn't. And that was how you noticed him. Well, in this game, he has a helmet, and the helmet blocks damage until you remove it, and then you can pop his face. This particular Locust has so much HP, guys. He has a ludicrous amount of health, and when you kill him, he always goes down because he's so goddamn tanky. So, my piece of advice, that was a stutter just then if you're wondering, guys. That was one of the micro stutters that happens on PC. But my advice for the shotgunner is to commit to what you're shooting. Either go for his helmet, get it off and then headshot him, or go for his leg and take him down. That's the seemingly the better ways to deal with him. I've had him take a torque round, which I completely fucking disagree with. I don't think anything should take a bloody torque round except for a boss. But you know, this game has got some interesting, and he's coming right now. So the moment I saw him, I'm leaving. Because you don't want to ever be close to this guy. This dude will one-shot you with a shotgun at decent range. And the hardest part about him, because he's probably one of the hardest enemies in the game, is later on, he loves throwing grenades. And in spite of Gears of War being around now for, you know, over a decade, they still don't give you a very good grenade indicator to tell you that one is near you. So instead, you hear a beep, you look for it, you pray you didn't go anywhere near it, and then when it goes off, it kills you anyway. So be very careful of their miracle grenades. And I have never died as much to grenades as I have in this game. And it's just from him. That one enemy. He just throws it, it lands exactly where you are, you roll away, you still die. So be very cautious when it comes to, if you hear that grenade, or if you hear somebody shout grenade, then you have to move, because it's coming where you are. But you might also notice, especially if you're a big Gears guy, there's a lot of things that are different in this game. They've changed a lot of reticles, they've changed a lot of features of how stuff works. They've changed some simple things which I have problem with, because I'm so ingrained with the muscle memory of playing the old games. Like, I wish there was an option to have the original damage omen from the old games, because the new one looks nice, but I don't like it. It's not Gears to me. I'm very autistic like that. Like, I don't like the new reticles, I like the old ones. I never hipfire the... Well, I say hipfire, I never don't unscope the long shot, because the new reticle, even though it's good, I don't like it. Because the old one... I have so much experience using the old one, it makes sense to me. This one just confuses me, and it's definitely going to be an adjustment period. But there's a lot of things like that, like you can't punch with your weapon anymore. Instead of punching with your weapon, you now punch with a knife, and you have to press a different button for chainsaw. And it's a little bit confusing, because I remember the properties of each of the melees, which makes each of the weapons really useful. There was another stutter just then, guys. You're going to see that all the way through the walkthrough, and I do apologise for it. If you want to make it a drinking game, knock yourself out. Every time there's a micro stutter, take a shot. Just be careful, don't die. But you might also have remembered, in the last game, if you were coming up against Juvies, you could melee them with certain weapons, and it would kill them in one hit. The Retro Lancer killed them in one hit. The Torque Bow killed them in one hit. You could completely pacify Juvies. Juvies now take 2 punches from your knife, and there doesn't seem to be a consistent way to kill them quickly with melee, so I literally never melee Juvies. In my old walkthrough for Gears 4, I would tell you to never shoot them. in this walkthrough, I will tell you to always shoot them, because the way the melee is designed, it's just not where it needs to be, in my opinion. It's an interesting new take on it, it's a risk, and I appreciate that, but I don't like it. But here is the carrier. The carrier is pretty much unchained. The only difference now, of course, is you can see his HP to know when you're doing damage and know when you're not. This particular mission is introducing reinforcements, which is an idea that completely gets ignored for the rest of the game after a couple of instances here. But it is pretty cool. So you get to choose between 2 enemies to come and support you, and all I'm going to do here, guys, is kill time. I pick whichever enemy has a tri-shot, because when they die, they'll give it me, and the tri-shot in this game is absolutely ridiculously strong. So all I'm going to do here, guys, is, I know there's plenty of booms waiting for me later on. The boom shot in this game has lots of spread, it's very strong, but I don't need it. I use it because I love the boom shot, and all I'm doing is buying time until the reinforcements turn up. And when the reinforcements turn up, they're going to just murder the boss. Because technically a carrier is a boss type enemy. I did that a bit too early then. If you're wondering what I'm doing, guys, if you fire a boom shot at his weak point as he spawns the cankers, it will destroy them with the explosive, and you don't have to shoot them. But they've already killed him with their really powerful guns, so it's okay. But yeah, if I could swap guns with these DBs, I would. Because, or these DR1s, I think they're called. That gun is ridiculous. And if you can get it when no one's fired it, you get like 180 rounds. 180 rounds is pretty much enough to kill anything in this game except for one of the bosses coming up. But use this as an opportunity to pick up as many items as you can, guys. Pick up your grenades, run around the environment. There will be moments where I don't run around the environments and restock, but it's just because I've edited them out. So please feel free to do it if you don't see me doing it. One of the things that can be really easy to not realise in a walkthrough is all the stuff you don't see that I'm trimming out to save time. But here is a puzzle with Jack. Shout out to 3-player co-op, where a human actually has to do this. But yeah, guys, if you've never played as Jack and you don't really understand where my bitterness towards it comes from, I did a session on Insane with my friends playing as Jack, and I was literally a light source. That's all I was. I was playing on PC. I would have been able to really help with mouse and keyboard to, you know, do some shots that might be a bit more difficult to do on controller. And what did it have me doing the game? It had me flying around and hiding because I couldn't take cover, and everything on Insane killed me instantly. It was the worst thing I think I've seen all year. But up there are some grenades, guys. I'm going to be showing you some caches and some hidden items. The game likes to put things on top of things so that Jack can pick them up. And I really implore you to get into that. Get into this idea of using Jack to retrieve things, because I wasn't doing it at first. And ammunition on Insane is always pretty scarce sometimes. You can get yourself into a bit of a bother when you run out of it. And in this game, you don't have to think like that anymore. You don't have to look at that weapon on the ground and think, can I get to it? Will I die? This is not like the final boss in Gears 3, where you had to run out of cover to get that Hammer of Dawn refill, and if you survived, it was literally up to luck and the game. If Jack had been in Gears 3, that final boss would actually be pretty fun, because you could send him to pick you up hammer refills, and it would be nowhere near as nightmarish. But here we go. So, moving through this location, this is one of those quieter sequences where you do some traversal and the characters do some exposition. You're also going to get to see the nice dynamic lighting. It is rather beautiful. I've turned some of the lighting effects and some of the shadows down because I don't really need them. Everything else that I'm running right now is pretty much on ultra. I've optimized it so that it's going more so for frames than for resolution, because if you don't know, guys, this game has a rather aggressive dynamic resolution, and it leads to a lot of blurriness, which, when you watch on YouTube, you're probably not going to get too much of that because the quality is so compressed and it's such a difference than the native. But when you're playing, it's really noticeable. But there's lots of areas to explore in this one. There is a whole sequences where you can do optional activities. And as much as I'd like to share those with you, this is only going to cover the main game. And this is the longest Gears campaign I've played, I think, since 3. It's a very long campaign. It's long in ways that don't feel very Gears-like as well, because there's a lot of sections where you don't really do much. Because one of the stranger parts of the game's pacing, especially for me, is that the game doesn't have as much fighting as the last one did. And I know a lot of people are going to love that, because some people like the the slower pace, the more methodical reveals and what have you, but it actually reminded me of the most recent Tomb Raider where I spent the whole game waiting to fight. But speaking of, we have our first encounter with everybody's favourite enemy. It is a Scion using the Buzzsaw, or the Buzzkill, I think it's called, which is an incredibly strong weapon that can kill you in cover in one hit if it connects correctly. The best piece of cover in this room I found is this pillar that I'm on right now, but I don't recommend going into cover on it because all that does is expose you to his aimbot. And all you're going to do here, guys, is thin the Jubies as they move towards you, and then try and take out the Scion. If you have the boom shot at this point, if you hit him in the face, it will one-shot him. And there is a boom shot up on the top left, next to one of those big fan holes that you can pick up with Jack to refill it. But at the moment, I'm just going to use my Lancer. I could use my long shot, but you'll notice I'm going to try and use my long shot as minimal as possible outside of areas where I know I want to use it. Because I like to save it for bad situations. But did you see how much damage I just took? That was a fleeting, glancing blow. Now imagine if that had hit me fully. It's just complete game over. But the DR1s that I hired to come help us have now died, and I can use their gun. The problem here is, these guns take a while to go out of cover with, and by the time you let go of aiming to go back in cover, you can die. So what you want to try and do here, folks, is you want to shoot a little bit, and then immediately go back in cover regardless. Because if you don't, you might commit and just get killed. If you're a little closer than I am with this gun, it's going to do more damage. The damage drop-off on this weapon is quite noticeable. But if the closer you are to enemies, the easier it is to die. This is something that's been true of every Gears of War. When you're close on Insane, they kill you so quickly. Distance is always a friend, but at the same time it's going to hurt your damage output, which is one of the unfortunate double sides to the blade. Distance is safer, but it also makes you weaker. What I'm going to try and do to combat that is I'm going to try my best to carry power weapons that can even the score. But up there, when I'm looking right now, just over there, is where the boom shot is for Jack to go and grab if you want to pick it up. There's also going to be a boom shot arriving in the next room, so you don't have to worry. But I do like that they've put in these little caches, because that's one of the things that Gears always did quite well. If you moved off the beaten path, you would usually find grenades or something of that. You know, there's a few classic Gears things that's represented really well here. Another one is explosive elements in the environment. Gears 1 had a lot of moments where you could use the environment to really help you, and this game has brought a couple of that back, so I'm very pleased with stuff like that. But pick up the Buzzkill, and you're going to be able to see coming up another one of the great features of Gears of War 5, which is you no longer lose heavy weapons when you go through loading zones. The amount of times in other Gears where I tried to carry a big weapon through a door and the game just dropped it and continued is off the charts. In this game, you not only do you have better mobility with heavy weapons, you can now aim them without planting them in the ground and giving you zero mobility. So they're more fun to use, they're more fluid to use, you're faster when you use them, and you can now carry them realistically through the game. And I'm going to recommend you do that, because the amount of times I've carried a weapon like this into an encounter and I've made it so much easier for myself because these weapons are very strong is very high. And if I can get into your head this idea of preparing for the next fight in the fight that you're in, it's going to put you in good stead to beat some of the tougher moments of the game. And you might be wondering, is this a difficult Gears of War? And in my opinion, I don't think it is. If you beat Gears of War 4 on Insane or Inconceivable, I think you're going to be just fine, because there's only one part of this game that gave me even remotely close to the trouble that I had in that game. Everything else was not even close. There are a couple of bullshit moments that rely on luck more so than skill in some ways, because the RNG can be quite fierce and some certain mechanics can be a bit frustrating. But now that you have access to stuff like Stim and certain features that Jack gives you, you can use way more skill to get through those moments. So the game gets considerably easier if you're smart with your tools, and I love that. But another thing as well, guys, this video series is going to have spoilers, so if you care about the story of the game, if you care about what's coming up, if you haven't beat the game and you're stuck and you're looking at this for guidance, I'm probably going to say something that's going to ruin your campaign. And I'm saying that from your perspective because I don't think I can ruin your campaign, because I think the story in this game is horrible. I think it's probably one of the worst. And I know that that's a controversial statement to say, but it's true. These people on Reddit that are saying that Gears 5 has the best story in the history of the series and it did all of these great emotional beats and everything I wanted from it, I question what game they were playing, I really do. And I don't say this and take any pleasure in it, guys, because I'm actually one of the people that remembers Gears lore because I played the games for the story back in the day. I was really into it. But the problem is, I almost feel like if you know Gears lore and if you're familiar with stuff that happened in the game, you're going to have a harder time enjoying the story because they're going to be telling you things you already know. The answers that you want and the things that are interesting that are new, they're completely dropped and not explored, and the things that you've already pretty much pieced together yourself from the old games are reiterated in revisionistic history, and to me it just comes across as lazy and shit I already knew. So I did not have the best time with the story in most of it, but there are some really nice emotional moments that I did enjoy. The frustrating point about that, though, is that they don't stem from the new characters. A lot of the emotional moments that I enjoyed come from characters that I have a history with that have been developed a lot more than the ones in this game. It's very difficult to care about Del, it's very difficult to care about JD, but whenever Marcus is involved, I've got like 15 years with Marcus. I'm very invested, and even though he is a gruff space marine who does nothing but shout, he's a father now, he's a widower, he's a lot of things that mean a lot if you've been with Gears for a while, and it's nice to see those moments turn up. There are some interesting parts, and the game does try its best to try and develop the new characters a bit more, so you're definitely going to be able to maybe empathise a little bit more with them. But when I empathise more with Jack, because Jack was in Gears of War 1, it's a problem, But I'm going to leave that up to you guys to decide whether or not you like it. Everybody likes something different. This is a pretty tricky section, because if you go near the fire, it will make you flinch, and if you're out in the cover, you'll die instantly to aimbot locusts, so be very careful. But the idea here is you use Jack to make the platform move, you push forward, you do a fight, and then you repeat until the end. I'm using the Boltok. The Boltok in this game is very good. The Boltok has been pretty good in Gears 4 as well. In this game, the snub is good, but you don't find it as often as you find the other guns. They like to give you the new Talon, which is a weird cross between an automatic pistol and the Gorgon, and I just can't find a use for it. I don't really get it. I don't understand why a gun that has that much recoil and does that little damage is, like, what is its job? Where does it fit into the arsenal of Gears? One of the things I always loved about this series is it was kind of a rock, paper, scissors series. If you played the multiplayer especially, you start with a Lancer, which is your long range, you start with a shotgun, which is your close range, you start with your snub, which is your in-between mid-rangers and extra mobility, right? Because everybody remembers Host Advantage running around with the snub and beating people down because it was ridiculous. Punch them once and then hip-fire them down. It was a nightmare, it was so strong. That was the trifecta of great features. You have each of the elements covered and it's a cycle that beats each other. At distance, the Lancer beats everything, except maybe you can compete with the snub if you know what you're doing and you're good at cover system. Up close, the snub and the shotgun beat the Lancer. Like, it's got a wonderful kind of reward and risk factor to it. Be careful of him, by the way. You come up these stairs, that piece of cover drops, and there's always a shotgunner there. There's a second shotgunner coming up here, but he dies of natural causes. And by natural causes, I of course mean those barrel things. And then coming up here as well, I need to warn you, there's no checkpoint at the beginning of this sequence with the Juvies, so if you die instantly, you'll have to do the full room again. So I recommend using the boom to kill the first spawn, use the second boom to kill the second spawn, and then you see the checkpoint. At this point, if you die, you're perfectly fine. And this does not last very long, it's very cinematic. And then it's going to transition to Chapter 2, which is Diplomacy. And if you do not like the ability to move around a large environment and like talk to characters and pick up collectibles, then this chapter is almost a complete bust. This is one of the first insights into Gears being a little bit more ambitious with its navigation and with its exploration. And I've wanted this since Gears of War 1. I always thought, when you first arrived at the Stranded camp in the second act, I always thought that would have been a really good opportunity to talk to the people and maybe run some resource errands for them to help them out, and I always thought that would have been really sweet. And then this game kind of does something similar to that, even though it's nowhere near as interesting in my opinion, and I didn't like it, so I guess you've got to be careful what you wish for. But here is the upgrade to Jack. Did you see that in the menu that I just picked, folks? These particular packets that I'm picking up here, these energy cells, these are upgrade points for Jack. They are components, and they are littered around the environments of everywhere you go. I think there's 108 of them in the game. There's a lot of them. I recommend you explore as best as you can to find as many of them as you can, because the more upgrades you can give to Jack, the better he is. And Jack is amazing. There are moments when an enemy's rushing you, and you're reloading, and you need to move, and if he attacks you, you'll die, and Jack will save you. He is so good. And the moves that I am upgrading, which I recommend you upgrade as well, I'm going to be upgrading the Zapper, because it enables him to do a melee electrical move when they're close, which can be very, very good for stunning and keeping you alive. By the way, guys, this is a sequence very reminiscent of the dangling section in Dead Space 2. You are using the new Talon submachine gun, and you're going to get attacked by Juvies. There is a new Juvie in this game. He has grenades embedded in himself. He's like a suicide bomber Juvie, and the Juvies are really fair in this one. There's none of that like co-op one tap, I don't think. But then again, I don't think I've got hit by a Juvie in co-op to see if that's true anymore. But what I can tell you is, I only died to Juvies in this game in one section where you fight a boss with them. And the only reason that they're even remotely a problem there is because the boss forces you into cover, and then the Juvies attack you in cover. But I've never failed this sequence, so I don't actually know what it looks like when you do. But just stay calm, get your actives, don't reload as much as I do. I've got serious reload OCD. But then you'll get saved in a moment, and then we can proceed on to the beginning of the new chapter. But I recommend that you upgrade Zapper with Jack, because it's really, really useful. I recommend that you upgrade the ability for headshots to make your cooldowns faster. I don't end up getting that in my walkthrough, I don't think, but it's really good. And then I'm going to recommend that you upgrade Flash all the way up to just before the ultimate upgrade, which I will not be getting because I've never done the side quest to do it. And then upgrade Stim up to the point where it lasts longer. I do not upgrade it to the point where it revives my team, because I've never needed to do that. But if I did need it, I keep the points just in case so that I can. But head through the ruined buildings. I picked up an Enforcer, but you're not going to see me use it too much. The Enforcer's reticle changed as well. It's a kind of an unusual gun. It's really damaging, but it's really inaccurate. And now we've got the Swarmak breaking the wall and a couple of the Swarm turning up. So these are the Imagos. The easiest way to tell an Imago is it's naked. The Imagos have the weakest HP, so you'll headshot them really quickly. The guys behind them are adult drones, so those guys are a lot tougher, and they'll take a bit more of a beating. But if you come up against the elite drones later on, these guys feel weak compared to those guys, because those guys kind of take the piss. But we're using the basic Lancer. The basic Lancer in this game is still good, but it gets kind of undermined later on. I would recommend that you give your party a Lancer if you can. It's always good to have your teammate who's with you to have a standard Lancer and a power weapon, just in case you need either of those tools to win. So this was a really dangerous mistake I just made then. I actually thought we had done, and I wanted to go and grab this grenade guy because I don't like him, and then there was a drone behind him. That was very lucky that I didn't die then. But look around, get your ammo, swap this gun with Faz. He has a tri-shot. This thing it does not have a tri-shot. Can you imagine if he had a tri-shot? That would be amazing. He has an M-bar. If he had a tri-shot, we would be best friends. But over on this table, there's another component for you to grab. And then we can move on to the next encounter. The encounter after the one coming up is the one where my game swapped the difficulty. So be very careful, because you don't want it to happen to you. But a little bit of a quiet moment here as we traverse through some survivors and some buildings. If you come down into this corner, there's another component hidden on this wall. When the component's just sat around, if you don't want to see the animation of JD picking it up, you can tell Jack to pick it up, and it will do it automatically, and you don't have to see any animation, so it's much faster. If you're that impatient, like I normally am, it's a good way of getting around watching that every time. And then in this room here, there's a bathroom directly in front of you. So if you go to the right of it, there's another component. Once again, you can tell Jack to grab them if you don't want to see the animation. And then make sure that you fill up on the resources here, because the next room we're going to be hitting has got a big battle. I really like this act. I think Act 1 in this game is perfect Gears of War. It's got story, it's got gunfights, it's got awesome action back to back, it's got some big encounters like this one. It's got a little bit of quiet moments for the characters to do things and then more action. And it's punctuated by a big battle as well, which I really, really enjoy. But the problem that I have on this particular fight is I'm going to be sniping from this distance for safety. But there's two things happening here. The dynamic resolution is making it so it's harder to see in the distance. And because the dot on the M-bar putting it on people's heads is so fiddly on my DPI, it's tricky to make that micro adjustment. So I should be just tapping these heads effortlessly, but I'm not good enough to do that. So instead, I'm just going to be shooting at them. And if you hit them in anything but the head on Insane, you're not going to get a one-hit kill unless they've been weakened. But just keep picking them off. I'm using the M-bar right now to get rid of it. It's a really good gun, and I recommend if you can't find a sniper to keep this one, because it is a sniper. It's just not as good. Or it's better, depending on which one you prefer. But once I've done with it, I'm going to pick up this rifle, and then I'm going to move towards the building over here, because directly in front of me, there's going to be a spawn of 3 snipers. The snipers have to move into position when they spawn, so if you're quick enough and you know what you're doing, you can snipe them before they finish getting set up. And if you can do that, you can give yourself a much easier time, because the snipers in this game will one-hit kill you. But when this person dies over there, they're going to spawn. And I just killed him, so when I get the active, I'm going to aim directly back over here, and here they are. So I managed to clip up one of them, which is better than nothing. And then there's 2 more now. So the moment you see that laser, you want to not be anywhere near it. That right there is classic reasons why in multiplayer you get headshot when you're in cover. Which, I should explain that because I'm assuming everybody knows as much about Gears as I do, but maybe you don't. So guys, when you're in cover like this, you'll notice that JD's back. He's poking over the cover. In the game, there are rules against the AI shooting you when you're in cover because it has to be fair, right, or it wouldn't work. However, visibly, you can see that I'm not completely in cover. And what happens here is the Longshot has such piercing on its shots, if you shoot the part of his back that correlates with where his head is on the other side, you'll headshot him through his back. And this is something that's been around since 2007 or 2006 when Gears of War came out. So when you go into multiplayer and you go into cover thinking you're safe, you're not. Against the AI, you're safe, except for that introduction level in Gears of War 4 where they used to hit you in cover because it was broken. The AI will never shoot you in cover outside of very rare instances. Against a player, they'll shoot you in cover with everything. You are never safe in cover. You should always be moving, always be paying attention. The moment you stand still in Gears multiplayer is usually the moment you're probably going to die. Either someone's going to run behind you or someone's going to be able to see your head. You should always act like you've got 50 snipers staring at you to make sure, just in case, that you're not an easy shot for them. Those situational awareness skills will then translate into the campaign too. Combine them with your ability to move in cover and your understanding of how cover works to make sure that you're never, ever predictable. You'll have a much bigger advantage in multiplayer. And that's why I always say to people, if you want to get better at Gears of War, guys, play the multiplayer. Because you're never ever going to be challenged by the CPU the same way you're challenged by a human. Because when you play against a human, it's brain versus brain. When you play against the CPU, you're essentially just masturbating, aren't you? You're playing with yourself, that's it. This is your game, this is your game to win. And the AI are just going to be in increasing stages of difficulty to try and stop you. But they ain't ever going to clip you like you clip them, you know? Until you've had a sniper battle, edging around the corner using the camera trick on canals with another human being, you don't know what getting sniped feels like. And admittedly, the computer's fantastic at sniping because they can aimbot you. But fundamentally, there's so many factors put into the game that make it way fairer than you believe. Like, did you see the laser? The laser's on you for a long period of time before they shoot you because it's to give you an opportunity to move. They might have perfect aim, but they can't react as quickly as they can because if they could, they would kill you in a frame. But right now, guys, I'm moving around the environment, showing you some caches of where to pick up some explosive ammo, some places to pick up perhaps some grenades. Here's a buzzkill, which is really useful for the fight that's coming up because we're about to take on 2 pouncers. When you go towards the group, it's going to trigger a checkpoint, and it's going to trigger the next fight. So, pouncers are actually pretty easy to kill, but they don't cooperate. And The idea here is, if you wait for it to get on the ground when it's not attacking somebody, if you grenade kill it, it will die. So you can grenade tag, run away, it blows up, it dies. If it's attacking somebody and you grenade tag it, it doesn't die. It gets a weird defensive boost, and I don't know why. However, we found a free bus kill, and the bus kill does a lot of damage, so you can kill one of these guys with the bus kill, and then you'll notice I'm just waiting now for this guy to overextend so I can kill him with a grenade. I'm marking for the team, hoping that they'll do more damage, but I see almost no evidence that they shoot more when you mark. Maybe it does more damage, I don't really understand it. But right now, I can extend, but then he leaves. And that's the problem with pouncers. Pouncers do not cooperate. And also, pouncers can hit you in cover, so never ever think you're safe against these guys. Because if there's an angle, they'll find it. And if they hit you with all of those quills, it's an instant kill. They do nuclear damage, and they should, because that's why they work. They work because they hurt. The one area of them that I'm not a big fan of is when they grab you, because it gives you the illusion that you can get out of it, but unless you're Usain Bolt on tapping buttons, I've never got out of it. On PC especially, because you have to tap F on PC, and I have rapid fire switches, I tap that button like a lunatic, and I still don't get out of it. But right now, you'll watch, when I grenade tag him, it doesn't even make a noise, which is really annoying. But because he took some damage, he died. And that's how you fight pouncers. You can literally kill them in 2 grenades if you're patient. You can shoot them a ton if you want to. A particular strategy I enjoy is if you flash a pouncer, it falls onto its side, and then if you shoot its weak point on its belly with a boom shot, it's an instant kill on Insane. You're going to see me do that in Act 4. But now that that's ended, the Guardian died and dropped a tri-shot. We need this to be successful, because this gun is awesome. Coming up, however, there's going to be some Juvies, and I really don't think you should use the tri-shot on the Juvies. I can't justify it myself. Juvies are very weak, this gun is very strong. You want to save it for the big battle coming up. And big shout out to the dude on Twitter who mentioned this particular fight coming up. There's a real big fight in this courtyard, and it is not easy. I seem to get very fortunate when I do it, and I've only failed it twice from the shotgun guy getting too close and insta-spraying me. But other than that, I really like this fight, and I have a really, really good time with it. And it's perhaps not the fight coming up, it's the fight afterwards. But I can understand why you would have difficulty, because you're getting mobbed on each side, and there's a lot of stuff coming. There are some fights in this game, guys, where you take on a really unconventional amount of enemies. And it's not Judgment-like, where it's, here's 10 boomers, along with 20 drones, and a berserker, and wretches. It's not like that, which is fucking amazing. Judgment gets a lot of shit, but one of the things that game did well is it turned Gears of War into the most ridiculous arcade simulator I've ever played, and I really appreciated that. But it puts you against stuff that put you on the back foot. There's a fight later on where, I should probably mention this because it's going to help. Your team can die in this game, guys. And I know they can die in the other games, but in this game, they died way more than they ever have for me outside of Gears 2. Gears 2 was the game that showed the world that a co-op companion should never die. Because if you ever played that game as much as I did, you know that when Dom went down, that's when the game got really hard. Because you would have to go to him and pick him up, and on Insane, leaving cover generally meant you're going to die. So whenever Dom went down, it was oftentimes the smarter choice to just restart checkpoint. And it became really frustrating, and you started to resent him. A character you meant to empathise with and have an emotional journey with, you thought was a massive wanker and couldn't stand the sight of him. In this game, your team go down a lot, and they can get picked up. Jack can pick up your team can pick each other up, and mostly the enemies can't seem to execute them or get rid of them. But if they're down for too long, they die and you fail. And in almost every big fight in this game, my team goes down. And there are a few moments where I've picked a defensive position, where I'm fighting a war of attrition and I'm winning, where there's one enemy left, but it's a tough one and I don't want to risk it, and my team has died and made me fail. So when your team goes down, you really have to be cognizant of it, because you might have to do something about it. And the good news is, you can run towards them, use Stim, pick them up, and then get back in cover, because Stim's amazing. And hopefully, if Jack's alive, he'll go do it for you. Jack is really useful for that. But this room has collectibles in it, and I don't know if it has anything else, but I'm one of those people where I always try to double check most of the places just in case I can find some sneaky ammunition. A lot of these battles in this game are going to be won before you've even started. If you carry the right guns into a situation and you have the right amount of ammo, you're going to have a much easier time. The hardest fight in this game for me, in this run, which I don't even think is hard, but it's one of the ones that took the longest when it comes to what my actual strategy is, was a situation when I did not have the resources to do it. I was a little bit cavalier with my resources before it. I'm going to warn you guys about doing that, and then you're going to have a much easier time. Because the fight's not hard, it's just a wanker proportion of enemies. But, like, look at this gun, did you see that? This gun is so strong. And it feels amazing, and the headshot sound is so beautiful. It's such a really, really satisfying crunch when you take them out. The real threat are the drones over there that I'm aiming at right now. Those people are in the position that we're going to occupy for the majority of the battle coming up. But you see what I mean? If you stay out of cover with this gun, you will die. But a few times... Like, what are the times where the most damage occurs in this? Whenever you're close, damage is higher. Shotguns will kill you in one hit if they're like 5 meters from you sometimes. They usually take 2 to 3 hits, but if they get you with that one, it's game over. Grenades will instantly kill you. Melees will instantly kill you, but in this game, the enemies like to grab. I don't really understand it. They give you this long grab animation that gives you the illusion you can get out of it or your team's going to save you, and then your team never saves you and you die anyway. So, whenever I get grabbed, guys, I just restart. I don't even entertain it. I have mixed opinions on it too, because if you get hit by the grab, but it doesn't trigger the vacuum, it one-hit kills you. You'll see that on the rejects, if you fight them long enough, where they do this really slow grab that leads to them hugging you and trying to blow up. But if you're on the edge of it and they scrape you with their hand, you just melt. It's really silly. But I recommend that you try to replace the Talon with the Boltok if you can, because the Boltok is just... It's really strong in this game. It takes 2 headshots on a standard drone to kill them. I wish it was 1, but I understand why it's not. But I'm just looking over here, guys, just to make sure that I don't miss any sneaky caches. I think all there is a couple of bits of ammo and an explosive one. That box there, not only will that refill enemy explosives, like the boom shot, like the drop shot, it fills your grenades and the grenades that you're going to be getting in a gun that's coming up. And the gun that's coming up is my favourite in the game. It is called the Lancer GL. When I first saw this gun, it was a big no from me. I was of the mind that I was never going to use it. I just thought, a noob tube on a Lancer? What are we now, Modern Warfare 2? That doesn't sound cool. And then when I picked this gun up and I noticed how tight the spread was on the gun, I was immediately converted. This is, for me, better than the normal Lancer in every conceivable way. It is so good, and I love this gun. This gun is a headshot machine on Immagos as well. But what the game wants you to do right here, guys, is it wants you to show off the grenade launcher feature, which is when you hold the reload button, on PC anyway, it paints a laser, and wherever you put that laser will be where it fires. You'll see it right here. It fires a rocket that flies into the sky and then comes down and lands. And it is really, really strong. It's one of the strongest moves in the game, outside of something like the hammer. And grenade tagging, probably. But it's super good, and you want to save it for when you need it, rather than just using it casually, because you're not going to be able to refill it as much as you'd like, and it's too precious to waste it. Like, I wouldn't have used it on him if I wasn't about to get a refill from the box, or I think you get a refill from the box. But anyhow, we have standard drones coming, so I fire one over there. He asked me what I want. I'm going to go with Shepards. I go with Shepards purely because they walk around and they can be like a moving distraction. But you see that explosive box? That gave me back the tools that I need. And I'm going to use this piece of cover over here and then start using it to get rid of some of these guys. One of the problems that this game has is the same problem that the last game has, but it's probably more evident here. The AI loves to go in your cover, and I've never had a game where the AI's ran in front of my aim as much as this one. There's this weird piece of programming that your partners seem to have, where they're obsessed with being on your cover and coming and sitting near you, and they're obsessed with running past your shot. The amount of times you'll have a sniper about to shoot somebody, and someone will run in front of you, is really high. And I never noticed it that much in some of the older Gears, but in this one, like, it's really frustrating. And usually, they're not too bad at pissing off and leaving you to what you're doing, but every so often it can just be a bit of a pain in the ass. And a couple of mechanics that you might not know of in the newer Gears, if you're coming back to this after some time. You don't have to melee cancel a reload to save the active opportunity. That is a skill that now doesn't exist. But unfortunately, I've done that for so many years, you're going to see me do it. What happens in this game is, the active has a cooldown. So do you notice on the top right, there is a white bullet next to the ammo count? That tells me if I go for an active, I'll be able to get one, if I can time it. And then do you see how it's got a cooldown on it? So when I go for it now, it's not there. That's what that is. It is a cooldown on your actives, so you can get a reload or shoot no bullets and then still go for an active, as long as that bullet is white. So you don't have to shoot your clip out and waste it in order to get the active going. That's no longer been a thing since Gears 4. Gears 4 changed that. But a couple more dudes coming. I'm just going to use this piece of cover here because it gives me a lot of safety, and hopefully my team will pull focus just in case anybody gets close like that grenade guy did. And now we've just got the special Juvie, the one with the bombs on him. And one of the best parts about this fight that makes it so fun is it's really well checkpointed. It didn't need to be either. It would have probably been fine with less checkpoints, but the fact that they put them in, I really like. And I have to say this, guys. Oh, by the way, these grenades were just because on the last attempt, because I failed on this section, I got flanked by somebody, and I don't know where they came from. So I put those grenades just as like a security precaution, and then I got onto the turret, which is one of the nerfed turrets, one of the most nerfed turrets I've probably used in the history of Gears. And I don't understand this. In Gears of War 1, the Troika had no cooldown, and it was an absolute destroyer of men, and it was really fun. It was the best turret in the series. The reason that it was tough to use, even though it really wasn't, is you couldn't aim. You had to blind fire the gun, so you had to learn to aim it without a visual cue. And I learnt to do that, you learnt to do that, it wasn't hard. Like right now, when I'm not aiming in, I'm using the classic Troika aiming system, and it's fine. On Gears 2 they introduced a cooldown, and I always hated it because I thought it was shitty. This game has inherited the cooldown, and it's also inherited the turret being weak as piss. If this was a Troika off the first game, these dudes would be getting jibbed and it would feel amazing. And this is not a sequence that's meant to be that difficult. You're meant to be in a powerful position here, so all I can think is that they failed to make a satisfying turret, and I'm hoping that the turret in Horde mode is way better than this. Because level 3 turrets, or level 4 turrets, I forget what they go up to, when you got those bad boys maxed, those bad boys felt great. But this one does not. Compared to the Tri-Shot especially, the Tri-Shot feels so good. But just keep shooting away, folks. The icon above his head is telling me that Jack can use his ability on him, if you're wondering. Do you notice how in the top left my abilities are both white? That means that they're able to be used, and this is the moment where when you try and use them, it doesn't work. Jack is invisible, I'm not too sure what he's doing. And we have pouncers, so I'm going to be careful with the pouncers, because the pouncers can jump into this courtyard like he just did, and if I had my grenade on I could kill him now, but I don't have any grenades. So that's really unfortunate. But I'm just going to use a combination here of the new Lancer and the boom shot, and just stay behind this statue. Ooh, that could have been really good if I'd have hit it in the right place, but I didn't. Once again, guys, the boom shot, when you fire it, its reticle is so ambiguous at times that it will fire oftentimes to the left of where you point. Especially on long distance shots. Long distance shots, you'll notice how off-skew the reticle is. That is not a new thing, the boom shot's always been that way. I'm assuming it's one of the balancing tools that they use, because it's a very good gun. And it's very strong in this one too. So this is me trying to figure out how to cancel doing that. There we go. But using the Lancer GL on these guys is a really good idea because it does very good damage to them. Especially the grenades. Like, it takes off a nice satisfying chunk. But that's one of the things you might notice. I don't know if you noticed it, I certainly did. Gears of War used to be like the epitome of third-person cover shooters to me, because it was the one that sparked the renaissance in it. You can go back to Operation Winback, you can go back to Killswitch. There were games that did cover before this game, and they were cool games, but this was the one that really made it contemporary. It really modernized it. It really made it fun. However, it's been a long time since that happened, and games have changed. Lots of games are third-party shooters now, or third-person shooters. Can you imagine that? Third-party shooters? What the hell is that? Like some strange Mario Party thing? Mario Party shooter. But here is the Snatcher. Same thing happens here as it always does, guys. Whenever it makes the noise and it shakes its tail, you need to be in cover or it will one-hit kill you with aimbot. There it was. And then all you do is shoot it on its exposed parts and hope it doesn't get too close. One of the differences in this game from the last one, the Snatcher's breath has had its hitbox made nuclear. And its hitbox was always shit. But now, it's like planet dog shit. It is so huge. You will not even get touched by the visual spray. You'll not even be stood remotely close to where the napalm juice lands, and you'll just instantly die. It's happened to me twice. So be very wary of this monster. But he can't jump up here, I don't think. And if he moves to the side, you can hit him with the turret, and it's a terrible idea. So just wait for him and wreck him. And a piece of advice with Snatchers as well. When he grabs somebody, if you flash him with Jack, it will always release them. It's a really cool secondary use for Flash. There's the Quill. Make sure you're not on the turret when he does that, or you will die. And then just keep peppering and win the battle. And there you go. One of the harder fights in the game is done. And it's fun. I like that fight a lot. That's a cool one. It's a fair fight too. You're in a good position. They can be in a good position if they're aggressive. It just works. And now we have The Tide Turns, Chapter 4. And this is another really, really fun chapter in this game. So you'll notice at the time of day, slightly shifting, the chaos of what's going on, and we now have got our visual on one of the new enemies in this game, which is known as the Flock. The Flock are really cool. But it has to be said, as an enemy, they kind of suck. And once again, I take no pleasure in saying this, guys, it's just reality. They are not dangerous at all. And I don't get why. When I first saw this enemy, I was worried, because I thought it looked like it was going to be really, really scary. I thought this thing was going to fly by you and you're just going to get instantly jibbed like the Krill. I thought it was going to be that kind of stuff. It's not. This enemy is so well balanced that it's almost not even a threat. It has nothing for you that's ever going to surprise you except for when it releases leeches. So how the Flock works is it flies around, you shoot at it until it dies. It's that simple. It will glow to tell you it's about to do an attack, but if you're in cover, it doesn't hit you. So all you need to do when you see it glowing is go into cover and you'll be perfectly fine. You're never in danger, ever, and it makes no sense. And then the other move, it spins as a tornado, and then it releases leeches that swim towards you and attack you. These leeches can be kicked away if they jump towards you, which will kill them. They can be shot and killed in like 1 or 2 bullets. They're the ultimate popcorn enemy. And even more so, your team is so good at shooting them, you'll almost never have to shoot them yourself. So they're never really as threatening as they would be if they manage to do what they're trying to do. And when they hit you, you die in 2 of them. So when the first one hits you, all you do is use stim, and then the second one, if it even gets to you, which it probably won't, it'll stand no chance of doing it. But shout out to Darkside Phil. He tried to do what I did just then, and stim didn't work, because Jack didn't do it. And I don't think he was in cooldown either, so it was one of those wonderful moments where he died, and it probably wasn't his fault. But right now, there's a gunfight in this courtyard, and it wants you to use the stim, but the stim's cooldown is quite high, so I'm going to sit in this wall boringly and wait for it to go down, and then I'm going to run through the fire with it, because it's kind of how they want you to do this. It's a tutorial for the stim. But you see what I mean? Even Dell's shouting at me. And can I just say this, guys? If any developers are listening to this, I know you're not, but, you know, my delusions of grandeur would like you to. When you spend all this time designing a beautiful game that we want to explore, can you please not make your NPC shout at us the whole time about what we're supposed to do? We already know what we're supposed to do. We're well aware of where we're meant to go. We're exploring the thing that you've lovingly designed, and we'd really like it if they wouldn't fucking shout at us the whole time. It winds me up something fierce. It really does. And I understand that hand-holding And telegraphing of where to go and waypointing is very important, because when a game doesn't have it, it frustrates me. But there's too much of it. Like, we know what we're supposed to do. You don't have to have these needless triggers. Like, have a button where we ask for them. Uncharted mastered this years ago. Are you in trouble? Do you not know where to go? Press up on the fucking D-pad. Boom, son. Now you do. It was a help button. It was perfect. But that's the end of that encounter. I love how Stim is so cool, guys. Please feel free to share your awesome Stim strategies, because it's such a creative ability, and it makes me wish that it had a slightly faster cooldown, and it was just how you healed. And it all comes from playing Black Ops 4. Black Ops 4, the way they use Stim in that game, completely changed my mind on manual healing. I used to hate manual healing. I always felt like it was awkward. You spent more time sitting wrapping your arm in a fucking bandage than you did anything else. And then Black Ops 4 made it fast, and they made it interesting. And then this game has similarly done something quite cool with it as well, where instead of it being a heal, it's just armor. It gives you armor that is objective against everything. It doesn't care what you get done to you. It just eats it. It's wonderful. Like, I bet it can probably eat a Hammer of Dawn charge, which is nuts, but I bet it does. I should have shot my feet. I didn't test it. I should have done that. Oh, by the way, guys, really good opportunity here to test out the old chainsaw. So if your teammate has a chainsaw lancer, which you should make sure that he does, because it's awesome to pick it up every so often, this is a moment when you'll be able to use it. I don't have it, though, and I'm going to end up fighting these guys in a pretty messy way. But these are the rejects. This is the second of the new enemies. That was the first time and only time I've used a shock charge, because as you'll see coming up, it does fuck all. Apparently everybody just walks past it and you don't have a problem with it. But you should use the Boltok here, guys. If you have to shoot them, use the Boltok. The Boltok is really strong against these enemies. But the idea of this enemy is it's in a sleep mode until you wake it up. If you go behind it, you can instantly kill it. And it works really well as an improvised stealth segment where you have to kill them in a certain order to make a path through the environment. And they work really well that way. Oh wow, there's a Lancer there. I didn't even realise. That's terrible. I should have just grabbed that. That would have made it so much smoother. But yeah, grab a Lancer, guys. It's just going to help so much, because chainsaw kills them in one hit. The shotgun does not kill them in one hit. It's the reason why I will never use the Gnasher in the campaign. And I'm going to say this in this video because it deserves to be said. I wish the shotgun was as good in campaign as it was in multiplayer. I'm not asking for it to kill Scions in one shot, although it totally fucking should. But, like, if you put a Gnasher in an enemy's ribs, they should die. When an enemy can kill you in one hit with whatever it does at that range, you should be able to do the same if you use the risky gun. That's just good design. But as it stands, that's not how it works. But there's a chainsaw. Of course, you are vulnerable when you do that, so I don't recommend chainsawing when you have more than one enemy on you, or you're just going to die. But using it intelligently, the chainsaw can be fantastic. And this room coming up is a great opportunity to do that. And I like this segment. I really like Act 1. It's so frustrating to me because I don't like Act 2 and I don't like Act 3. But Act 1 and Act 4 are so perfectly Gears that it just makes me sad that the rest of the game is so different. And we're going to talk a lot about it because it's going to give me a lot of downtime. I don't think that they're bad. I just think that in the way that they're different is in a way that I don't want. Because for me, quintessential Gears is encounter, 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 moment of like brevity and levity where we learn some information or some plot devices, where we walk a little slowly, we kind of figure some stuff out, there's a bit of downtime, a bit of a valley, and then back up to the peak of action, 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 something happens, exposition moment, information, action, 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 action. Because I play this game for the action. I always have. And Gears 1, in my opinion, is almost a perfect game in a lot of ways when it comes to the way that it delivers its action. Of course, there's still those moments where they have those kind of spooky moments where they lean into the horror, where they introduce the Krill, and where they introduce, you know, the Lambent Wretches, and you're going through the labs and wondering what that place is. They still have those moments of quiet and calm that have exposition happening, but then there's action, 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 and then Act 4 is just bombastic action, 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 and then Act 5 just never lets up either. And we all know that Gears 1 has its fair share of problems. You know, there's the wonderful Junker section where you drive around in that vehicle that nobody likes. But it's still, it's just such a good vision, and it has such focus that the diversity, while welcome at the time, ended up making a lot of the game feel different. Because Gears 2 had a lot of other sections, but I think that they punctuated it the correct way. Gears 3 was the same. It was big, it was long, it had longer, bigger, harder versions of everything, but it was always mixing it up, and it was always in the pursuit of that core action gameplay feedback. Whereas in this game, even this chapter, Chapter 1, this has a lot of moments of character development and dialogue. And I say character development when in reality it's really not. It's just people saying what you expect them to say in that scenario and not really adding much to the whole overall narrative. But thankfully, the moments of calm are short enough that you're immediately back into a fight, and it feels like that Gears roller coaster. And this is a really cool room. I love this room. So this is one of the areas where I think Gears 5 nails it. In the older games, the Wretches could be cunts. The Wretches can kill you in like 1 to 2 hits depending on how they clip you. They were really mean. A very difficult enemy. Then we had the Tickers. The Tickers could be assholes. The worst thing with the Tickers is when you went to kick one and your AI shot it and it killed you. Always a fun one. Or if you went to kick it and you missed or another one blew you up, like the Tickers could be very, very, very bullshit at times because you just exploded when they died. Gears of War 3, they had the Formers. The Formers were really dangerous because there were so many of them and they mobbed you, but they were really fair because they died quickly, and as long as you used, you know, intelligence and good positions, you could keep on top of it. Gears 4, the Juvies, were kind of like Wretches, but a little bit more fair, but also a little bit more arsehole-y. And then in this game you have the Rejects, and the reason I like these fellas is because you can kite them. You can run around the whole room consistently, and you are never ever in any threat of dying or being hit, because the grab is too slow. So if you're good with movement and you know what you're doing, you can do this whole room without shooting them. You can just isolate them and chainsaw them, which is what I'm going to be doing, and it's what I'm going to recommend you do as well, guys. This is really good practice for not panicking when you're surrounded by Rejects, and it's really useful. And when one of them comes towards you and you've got that handful of time to kill him and get rid of him without somebody else killing you, then you chainsaw them, and that's all I'm going to do. Divide and conquer and get rid of them. And it's a really good strategy, and I like it because it's the brutal, close-quartered ferocity of a Wretch section, but it has the intelligence and the strategy of a cover section. Because you can do it. You could do this like a lunatic and, you know, just chainsaw them all and try your best and shoot them and dive around and make it all high octane and terrifying. Or you could just clinically separate and conquer. And right now it gets a little dangerous because the guy's down and I don't know how long the animation to pick him up is, and I don't know if you have iframes, but what I should do here is I should pop the stim. Run towards him, pop the stim, pick him up, but instead I'm just going to kite them. Because there's a real fear right now that Dell's going to bleed out.
I'm bleeding out.
So, just pop your stim and pick him up. And then as long as you get away, the enemy is really balanced. And this is the problem with the new enemies. They're all super balanced in a really good way, but in a way that doesn't lead to challenge. And now that they've all grouped up on him, I just thought, well, they're just asking for it, aren't they? So, use the boom shot. But this room also reminds me of Masters of the Universe. You know the part where Courtney Cox's character goes to her boyfriend's band setup in that school, and there's a stage like this, and then it all kicks off and she hides in the back and all the bounty hunters turn up? It reminds me of that. But here we go, guys. Our first boss encounter against the Swarm, and our first encounter with the Leeches. So if you wait for it to jump, you can actually kick it away, but this weapon's kick is so, like, weird. And the wind-up on their jump is so long, I ended up doing it prematurely. But wait for them to wind up. Soon as they start jumping, press B. And then if you carry the tri-shot that was in that other room that I didn't use intentionally, so I could use it here, you're going to kill this flock really quickly. But bearing in mind that this is the equivalent of a gunker. You know, of a mauler, of a scion, of a carrier, of a snatcher, of a berserker. That's what tier this enemy is in the grand scheme of the pantheon of the game. This is the new one of those, of a kestrel. And, like, has it ever been dangerous? Did it ever attack? Did it ever duo? And in its defense, I smashed it with the tri-shot, and the tri-shot's really strong. But when you introduce a new enemy that's meant to be of the caliber of something like a gunker or a boomer, it has to be dangerous. It can't just fly around and die. And that's the issue here. It's not that I'm a great player and I've found like a sick strategy. I'm a Gears player who used common sense and killed an enemy before it even attacked me. And that's my goal with everything, don't get me wrong, but you rarely get to do that. So, the flock is a cool idea, but they just come off as worthless. They come off as this really cool thing that's a joke. I'm not scared of them. And in Gears of War on Insane, you should be scared of everything. When that enemy comes close to me, I know I'm not going to die. And I shouldn't have that comfortability. Oh, by the way, guys, be careful here. Did you see me looking at the floor? Whenever I look at the floor, it's because the collision's been weird and I can't move. And for some reason, this game, the most buggy, unpolished Gears game I've ever played, and I've played them all, there are times when you literally can't walk forward because there's some weird leftover invisible collision. And it probably happened in the other games, but I don't feel like it was in the main path. It was always in places where you can understand somebody forgot to do it. But here is I think this is a Scion that's using a Mulcher. But did you see how much damage that Scion did at this distance with that gun? Look at that damage! This is what an elite enemy should do to you. It should be something you have to respect. And you don't have to respect the other ones. And it's the new ones especially. There's a creature we've not seen yet, and I'm not going to mention it just in case, you know, people are sensitive about that. But there's a creature coming up that literally sits there shooting you with a tri-shot. That's all it does. It doesn't do anything else. It doesn't gradually walk forward. Like, every so often, it moves, but it doesn't really do that much. And when you're close to it, it does like a stamp. But other than that, it sits spamming bullets. That's it. That's all it does. And it has so much life that you sit there shooting this thing for what feels like an eternity, and I couldn't honestly tell you what the hell it's meant to do. I don't understand it at all. Here comes another flock. Like, every enemy in this game has a strength and a weakness and a purpose. Some are to push you out of cover, some are to put pressure on you from a distance, some are to just be, you know, absolute assholes. Everything has a feature that makes it fit into the pantheon of the combat. But the thing that we'll fight coming up in the theatre is just, I don't get it. And I don't get the flock. Once again, the flock is distracted right now, so I'm getting free shots on it. But look at it, like, it's too balanced. It's too balanced for Gears. Do you remember Gunkers, guys? I keep saying Gunker for a good reason. I will never forget Gunkers. Do you know why? Because they're absolute arseholes. Every time they throw that projectile, someone somewhere's dying. And it doesn't matter how good you are. It doesn't matter how good you are. It doesn't matter how learned of the game you are or what your skill set is. There's times when they throw that and you're dead. And you can't really do all. That's too far the other way. That's too far on the line of bullshit for me. And I always hated them. Because they're massive tanks and they're cunts that can kill you at any moment with aimbot nonsense, omniscient, stupid blob damage. But then you have the flock, and it's too far the other way. There's this line in between those two places, between being a gunker and being a flock, where they need to find each other. They need to meet in the middle. The gunker still needs to be really dangerous and really ferocious, but he shouldn't have perfect aim from 9 million miles away and predict where you're going to roll, because that's just retarded. And then the flock is so balanced that it's not even a problem to fight it. When that thing gets close, you should be dead. You should have to run away for everything you've got, or you just die. Like, I don't know what they do to change it. I could probably think about it and come up with some cool shit, but they need to do something. This is me showing you the upgrade menu, by the way, just in case you haven't seen it. I'm going to be trimming most of those out, but I wanted to show what I've got on and what I'm using, and that's pretty much what I'm going to be using the full game. The cloak is so strong, and so is hijack, but I'm only going to use them once or twice to show you what they can do, and then for everything else I'm going to leave it. Because the game is... There's only a few fights where they put you in an immense disadvantage, and those fights are just generally not that fun. With Cloak and Hijack, however, you can definitely make them easier, which is one of the reasons why I'm going to try and avoid it for a walkthrough, so I can... If I can get through some of the scenarios just using the basic tools, you can then augment that scenario and that strategy with more tools, right? That's how I look at it. But just a glancing around, coming through here... I hope this section is 3-player co-op with three people using the players, because you're with Kate and Marcus for a lot of this. But I love this fight. This is a really interesting one. It's obviously an homage to Hamilton, if you've seen the logo. But it's just one of those sequences that it fits the mundane with the magic of the conflict that's happening right now. So we have a theatre production. We're behind the curtain. And we're about to have a massive fight here with music playing. And it's that wonderful fusion of this life or death struggle with this wonderful production. And it's an interesting place to fight. And Gears of War 4 is easily one of the most dull Gears of War games for a lot of the places that you fought in, because it was all super generic and none of it was that creative. And in spite of a lot of my criticisms with this game, you fight in some pretty unique places in this one, and there's some cool subversion of expectations that happen, and I appreciate that a lot. Even in the times I don't agree with it, I do appreciate it. And this is the enemy I was talking about, guys. This is called a stump. This is an enemy that sits there shooting at you with a tri-shot and makes me question why he exists. Because, like, he sends leeches your way when he stands up, and then he sits back down after the leeches have turned up, and then that's it. And it's... Nice kick, I love that shit. And then some rejects chase you down because this enemy's so useless. It's not threatening at all. And I don't get it. I'm looking forward to finding out why this enemy exists, because there must be something cooler about him. Like, the only thing I can think of is that when you hijack him, he's kind of okay. But you don't have hijack yet, unless you're playing New Game Plus or something. So, it's not an option. But the music's fantastic right now. It's got that neoclassical piano. And then we've just got rejects, and I'm going to wait for them and chainsaw them, because that's how you should fight rejects when they know where you are. Which I'm surprised that chainsaw animations are all still so simple. Or still similar, I should say, because they're not necessarily simple. But it'd be nice if he cut across their chest instead of diagonally. Like, imagine if he cut across the top of their chest horizontally. Just something a bit different. I don't know. Like, imagine if from behind, he sawed through their leg, they fell down, and then he shoved the bayonet through their neck, and then just ripped it out or something. Just a little different. A little bit of a mix-up. But they're all there's a lot of safe animations. Because instead they want you to buy their microtransactions so that you can purchase crates or whatever there is in this game inevitably that's going to get you those blood splatters, which I think is one of the more creative rip-offs of Overwatch, but at the end of the day it's still a rip-off of Overwatch and it shouldn't be in the game. And if you don't know what this is, guys, you know how in Overwatch you can spray on the walls? And I feel like if your main focus in Overwatch is spraying on the walls, maybe you're playing the wrong game. But you could do that when you were waiting for the match to start and various other things that happen in those games. Well, Call of Duty Black Ops 4 ripped that off by letting you spray shit like that in the menu when you're queuing for a game, which is just as pointless and worthless and needless and frustrating as it sounds, because all it does is flood the loot boxes full of shit you don't want when you're trying to get the new DLC guns. And then Gears has ripped this off because it seems to be the hot shit now. But what Gears has done is, when you kill people, the blood spatter splatters an icon in the blood. So it's pretty creative, but at the same time, it's just kind of like, I'd prefer it if the game wouldn't eat my fucking save, you know? I'd really prefer it if the game didn't have crippling softlock bugs and pathing issues and the AI just completely turning off. Like, if I'm choosing between a nice logo in my blood splatter and the game functioning as a video game, you might be focusing on the wrong shit, dude. Just saying. But there's another upgrade for Jack. I'm carrying the tri-shot. I don't know if the tri-shot saved me then when that guy tried to grab me, or if he always just blows up. The first time I did that room, I let the team kill him because I was too busy looting. But in here, there's another guy crawling out of the bathroom, which you want to be careful of. I don't want to shoot him if you're wondering, guys. You might be thinking, Chris, why aren't you shooting with that huge gun? I want to save it because coming up is a Swarmak. And fear not, guys, this is not the Swarmak from Gears 4. The Swarmak in Gears 4 is one of the least fun bosses in the history of Gears history, which has been replaced by a boss in this, in my opinion, because I'd rather fight the fucking Swarmak than a boss that's in this game. And I'm not going to say any names just in case, because, you know, people are quite fussy. But there's going to be spoilers in every video after this one, don't you worry. But this Swarmak fight's actually really good. There's just one... I have one problem with it. Well, two, actually. The first one is his missiles still hit you in cover and still make no fucking sense, and I don't understand why they let it do that, because it just feels cheap and stupid. And at the end, once Cole drives the bike into his mouth, it gives you control, like you're supposed to shoot the bike or do something, but you don't have to do anything. And I just stand there and wait for him to die, and then it triggers a cutscene. So what I've done here, guys, is instead of having that in the walkthrough, I've edited the cutscene to make it look like he just dies in the cutscene. And if you're wondering, like, oh, how did you do that? Because, you know, I had to fight him afterwards. Like, look at that. I should have used the armor before that missile landed, but at this point I wasn't completely certain on how it worked. I was using it as a healing device. I wasn't using it as proactively as I'm going to be later on. But I use this piece of cover, and I shoot his warts, because that's how you do damage. You shoot his pimples. To your right, there's going to be some spawns of some enemies, but if you're quick enough, they won't have enough time to hurt you, and you should be able to end this fight. If you're aggressive and accurate, you can pop the blisters in between his flinches from popped blisters. The only problem is the cover does not cooperate the best. The cover is really frustrating sometimes of getting your gun in the right angle to shoot him. And if he starts shooting at you like this, you can't pop out of cover and challenge him because you'll die. He just does too much damage. And you want your team to pull focus right now, but your team, sometimes you just don't even do anything. Like right now, someone's shooting, so that's cool. So they're at least trying. But I should pop the stim, then pop up and shoot him. Because if I pop the stim, guys, he can't hurt me. But I already triggered the cutscene. Here comes Cole. And then he hits him in the mouth, and then he blows up. And then that's the end of the video, guys. That is the end of Gears of War 5. First act on Insane. Welcome to my walkthrough. There's going to be 3 videos after this as we cover each of the acts. And good luck with the game, guys. I hope you have less problems than I did when it comes to the performance and the bugs and the crashes and all of the other things that people have been having on every system. It's not a PC problem, unfortunately. And fingers crossed that when you are playing this, it's had a really nice patch that's made the game what it should be, because a lot of people paid a lot of money to play this early, and for those people, it's been nothing but a miserable experience, and I just can't help but feel like in 2019, on the 6th Gears game, it shouldn't be like this. But thank you for watching, and you take care now.